Have you ever heard the term imposter syndrome? It's essentially a feeling of inadequacy that continues despite evidence of success. In fact, it's particularly common in high achievers across a variety of sectors. Especially with people who are successful, it's very common for them to feel like they're going to be exposed for who they really are at any moment, which is that they're just a normal person. So they constantly feel like they're hiding something. Now, part of this is due to the fact that they're surprised at their own success. Part of it is due to the fact that perfectionism is quite common in high performers. So they feel like they have gotten so far, but at any minute, it could be uncovered that they're not everything that most people think they are, or that everything they've ever worked on wasn't really perfect. One serious challenge with imposter syndrome is that it can make people feel like they need to act like there's something that they aren't. I've talked many times on the program about the challenges with being inauthentic, but it's particularly critical in the real estate investment business that it's clear that you're being honest. Inauthenticity can be one of the most significant red flags from an investor's perspective, and for good reason. So I'd like to discuss the issue with imposter syndrome and some of the ways you can overcome this hurdle if it's something that you're struggling with. Now, I recently read a book called Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley, and there was a really special takeaway in there. There's many. You should definitely read it. But one of the things that stood out to me that wasn't really highlighted over and over again in the book is that you really don't need to be ultra famous to be successful in business. What you really need is just a few thousand people who have really bought into your brand, and only a few hundred who are interested in purchasing from your business, your product, your service. They're willing to buy. Now, the reason this is important as it relates to imposter syndrome is that one of the causes of this feeling of inadequacy is that people will find out who you really are. That's the challenge. People are scared that they're going to actually figure out who you are. Let's say you have some unpopular beliefs, or you didn't do well in school, or whatever the case may be. Anything that you view as potentially undesirable and less than perfect in terms of the standards that you hold yourself to. So because high performers hold themselves to a really high standard, they tend to struggle with imposter syndrome. They're constantly worried that they're going to lose their audience if they're exposed for whatever that specific thing is. This is the absolute inverted version of the way that people should be thinking about branding, especially in today's world where you have instant access to pretty much everyone in the world. Let me explain. Entrepreneurs don't need a little bit of buy-in from a huge group of people. In order to be successful, all you need is a huge amount of buy-in from a small group of people. Of course, the more people you have a ton of buy-in from, the better. But the key is that what you're looking for is people who are obsessed with you and your company. Those are the ones that really matter. Those are the ones that actually move the needle. So once you start thinking about it like that, it opens you up to actually be open about who you are. What makes you interesting? What's counterintuitive about you? What's cool about some of the cool things you've worked on in your background? If you're able to do this, and you can acquire these high buy-in clients by doing so, you never have to worry about, quote, being exposed. This is a huge shift from what most people think about when it comes to building a brand. So here's my suggestion. Stop worrying about what people think. There's enough people in this world that someone's likely going to be significantly grateful that you're actually being yourself, but more importantly, they will relate to you. All the things that people are typically embarrassed about are what makes them interesting. And if you're trying to stand out, being interesting is what really matters. And you certainly should be trying to stand out, especially from your competitors. The only way that you're going to get those high buying clients is if they actually have some meat to bite into. These interesting tidbits about who you are, your background, your life, that is actually the meat. And without it, it's just like biting into a sandwich without any meat. So regardless of what industry you're in, there has never been a better time to focus on branding, building a personal brand. But if you're thinking about branding and acquiring a following in the way that most people think about it, it can increase the feelings of imposter syndrome, especially if you actually start to succeed. Again, imposter syndrome is specifically the feeling of inadequacy regardless of the success you experience, and it's actually more common in high performers because, of course, the stakes are much higher. So putting yourself out there in the public eye can lead to all sorts of challenges, but if you recalibrate yourself to realize that you aren't looking for a little buy-in from a huge amount of people, but rather a ton of buy-in from just a few people, everything can start to change. Once you set up your brand to actually start attracting those people, once they're in, they're attracted to you for all the right reasons, meaning that you won't feel like being exposed at any minute can happen, and therefore you're going to lose your stream of income and a bunch of problems that go along with having challenges in your business. This is something that I know a little bit about, given that this is exactly what I've done with the show. I've not catered towards the largest audience. I built this podcast based on topics that I wanted to talk about, said some unpopular things. Only some people have agreed with some of the things that I've said, but the truth is, I don't really care. And the reason for this is that you are there. And thanks to you, now that the show has a following filled with people who are a lot like you, I never have to worry about saying the wrong thing or, quote, being exposed. I can just be myself. Most of all, I actually love what I do all day, doing these cool interviews, doing these Monday Minutes right now. And I'm very grateful for that. And so I wanted to share that because I feel like this is an incredible opportunity right now. Branding has changed drastically over the last several years, and it's something I'm very grateful for. So thank you, first of all. And to kind of conclude there, imposter syndrome is something that a lot of people are struggling with. And I think hearing things like this reinforces the reality of the situation and may reduce the negative impacts of this challenge. A lot of people struggle with the issue, especially high performers. Simply being yourself from the beginning, it will significantly help reduce those feelings of self-doubt later down the road. And I cannot tell you how freeing it is to be free of the feeling that you may be exposed for something. In short, don't let these haters get you down. Focus on the really high buy-in clients, and you're going to be well positioned for success down the road. All right, listeners, you know the routine. This show is all about learning, making wise investments, and protecting and growing your capital. So if you're interested in these topics, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Of course, if you've already enjoyed a couple of great episodes, don't be shy. Leave a review. It really helps the show's visibility. And lastly, if you're an accredited investor and you're interested in learning more about our investment opportunities, the types of deals that I personally invest in, go to asymcapital.com. That's ASYMcapital.com. Thanks a lot.